Afternoon all. This is a Meccano Multimodels 7 model set. It's been around for a while, but this one is a 2014 one, as per the date on the box. A little only slightly fiddly in places and requires a little bit of care and attention and adjustment to the steering to get it to work well, but that's sort of the most fiddly bits. The information is a bit sketchy because I've done this one a while back, and even though I made notes I can't read my own writing. But with the lighting being broken and now repaired or patched up, I thought I'd make start catching up, because I've made a few models now in the last few weeks and continuing on others which were started a while back. Anyway, I couldn't really make out what this was, to be honest. Is it a buggy or is it a quad bike? Well, I went on with the exhaust, as you can see, being swept up the back, and that's sort of a buggy, sort of beach buggy type thing. Build wise, it was 2 hours 6 minutes, it says here. That does include making notes as you go, so you can knock a bit off that. I'll just read my notes here. The steering. Now, the pinion that drives the rack, because this is rack and pinion steering, just show you it turn there like that. As you can see, it doesn't turn very well the one way. This is mainly due to play in the rack. It's not exactly a fantastic rack and pinion, but it's okay. And the pinion on some of these sets now has changed, so you get more throw for less travel. This one is the smaller pinion. The problem with this is clearance with the seat, these exhaust rails and the seat, and when you're putting it together, the seat comes and the exhaust comes later, and you think, well, looking at the picture on the box, how much angle shall I put on there? Well, the answer is, when you get to the stage of putting the, we'll say the steering wheel, look more like handlebars of course, when you come to do the steering, putting the bars on and putting the angle on, leave that until you've secured the seat at a stage or two later on, and the as you secure the seat, it pushes down on the exhaust, giving you more clearance anyway, so you're able to get a better angle on those handlebar ends. It's actually, there ain't that much play in it now, but there's still it still turns left more than right. There are some fiddly things to well, put it this way, you're at a stage, you're putting the steering together, there's obtuse angle brackets used. It's worth not tightening those up till the later stage. Then you can adjust, give you more adjustment in the rack, and easy to set up. As in real cars, although try telling garages this, when you do set the steering up, make sure the wheels are pointing straight before you put the, we'll call them handlebars on this, before you put those on. A couple of times I've had tracking done on the real thing, and they've failed to put the wheels straight, so when you're driving down the road your wheels all skewy. Anyway, there ain't a lot to say about the model regarding build. It is really just that attention to detail with the putting the steering together and making sure everything's nice, making sure the pivots are just loose so it moves freely, not too loose and obviously not too tight, so it gives you a reasonable setup that's not lanky. That's not too bad. Of course, these rubber grommets, they tend to come loose a little bit, especially in the heat of these lights I'm using at the moment. So it's a bit, well, not overly fiddly, but just take your time sorting out all the pivots, all the angles of the mounts of the rack. Make sure you can get that sorted first. Of course, the end result, the steering wheel handlebars seat and that all comes towards the end really. Nothing overly complicated at all really with this model. Decent sized model. It has got suspension at the back with a rear swing arm, and as you can see there, it has suspension. Again, with the pivots there on the swing arm, tight enough to not be lanky but not too tight that they can't move very easily. The model itself is obviously very similar both sides, as you can see there, and you can see the steering again. It turns nicely left but hardly anything right, but I think you get a decent profile of this. When you're putting it together, this is the only awkward thing that you can't really work out until you've got it together, even by looking at pictures, purely because the diagram and the picture don't show this up very well. And that is where these braced girders, triangular braced girders, join here. I don't know if you can just see, there's a slight bend in the bracket there. There's a slight bend there. Without those slight bends, they won't line up. It gives a slight bend to these, I suppose you call them mud guards. It's better off on this one. I think I did this one on the second time and got it better. I got most of the bend in the mud guard there. So a slightly odd looking model, because it's not really you expect a dune buggy to have smaller wheels on the front, but anyway, not a bad model. I would try and read my notes, but it's a bit confused to say the least. But mainly relates to setting up the steering with adjustment, being careful on that, tightening some parts at a later stage fully, when you can get the adjustment all lined in with the next stage. And that's about your lot. Not a lot to say. We have suspension, we have the steering. There's no motor, of course, on this, but it's a quite fun model. But I would have preferred a little bit more finer tolerances on the rack, but it does work.